Hey guys, here's the gear for today as usual for this month. Using the same stuff. Declaration Grooming B13 Badger Knot. Handle by Dogwood Handcrafts and Briar Brushworks. Love that dark wood stain myself. Timeless open comb stainless steel 68 gap razor with a knurled handle. Very grippy handle. The Nacet 58. Yep, 558 uses will be today's count if all goes well. And Midnight Stag is the scent for the soap, splash, and cologne today. Leather, gasoline, smoke, and wood. Those are all the notes. And man, I'm a huge fan. All right. I am a huge fan. So, I don't have anything specific to try today. Yesterday was a dry type of lather with just kind of adding some water later to see if that, worked. It didn't really work. It only worked because that hydrated the lather. It didn't really work to have it be a separate event, and gradually the lather got better as it got more hydration. So let's just do a standard bowl lather today, and maybe I'll think of something to try later on. Any process changes that you would like to see me try, jump into the comments and let me know, and I'll give that a shot. I guess I could try some more face lathering. I mean, I've tried a bunch of it over the years, but I don't really enjoy it, but I guess I could try that. So, splash of water on my face. And then we will load the razor. In a way, I am putting some wear on the bolt of the razor here as I put the blade on and off on such a regular basis. You don't really need to do that. If you do want to dry your blade after each shave, generally I would put the blade down on a washcloth here and then just pat the top of it dry. But lately I've just been leaving it in the razor, just unscrewing the razor a little bit to allow for good airflow and water flow, give it a good rinse, and then set it aside. I haven't even been dabbing the blade like I used to for so long. But here's the markings on the Nacet. By showing it to you guys every day, I mean, I have to kind of take it out to be able to do that, so I'm going to be operating this razor. I'm not going to crank down really hard. All right. Never need to do that really. And let's go ahead and load. Probably not going to take too much load time. We'll just do my usual kind of bowl lather. Lightly wet. $20, $30 swirls. We've got some suds. Why don't we just go with that? I bet it'll be enough. Let the excess water from the tub drip into my bowl. And let's start. And then I'm going to start a trickle just to kind of get, that's not a trickle. Just to where I can get to a nice slick wet lather more quickly. Used to measure a lot, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, especially if you're trying to dial in your lather skills, and if you just kind of do it in an unmeasured way, then you sometimes are kind of shooting in the dark. You don't know what is working and what isn't working, Main reason I would measure for you was for you guys, so that you anybody coming after my watching my video, they could more easily duplicate the process instead of just saying add water till it looks right, you know. But this month I'm not measuring too much. Maybe I do need to whip out my, maybe that's what I'll do tomorrow, whip out my little, I had a jigger that would measure multiple ounces, you know, and I'd say it in milliliters because that's easier to count. One of the nice things about adding water early on is that you don't really have to deal with that firmness of the lather. It very quickly gets to kind of that goopy phase. You don't have to do as much, you know, pushing down from the side, you know, in your bowl. And look at that, yeah, 30 swirls. I've got plenty of lather here. So this 3D lather bowl has ridges that have been printed, you know, that are all inside the bottom, the floor of the bowl, if we could call it that. And many people do look for that when they want to do a lather bowl, and it helps a little bit, but I tell you what, just as a little FYI, I am much more impressed, and my higher priority is in the size and shape of the bowl itself and not any kind of interior texture. Because even if that was glossy and flat on the inside, as the brush goes up against the sides and the corners of the bowl, it deforms the hair. You know, it causes the hairs to flex in different ways, and that is going to be an agitative type motion. And definitely watch out for those suribachi bowls that are Japanese. They are meant for grinding, and so they have, many of them are, and so they have a very a more abrasive surface, and that's not good for your brush tips. Maybe synthetics would be fine, but I believe that would be too harsh on my boar or badger or horse tips, and I would not want to have that abrasion affect my brush. I believe it would be negatively. Nice cool water. Refreshing. Hot days of summer. So it's good to... You see that guy just shoot off side here? I think I've said it a couple times, but maybe again will be fine. I am really enjoying this badger brush this month, and while I may not enjoy watching a boar brush grow over the month, it's really neat to see those brushes change. I am definitely enjoying the luxury of the badgers. Of this badger specifically. It's one of my favorite ones. All right. And just for grins, it's worth saying that I'm not really seeing any change in the lather performance here. But now that this is my second use of the newer tub, that white label older tub. It's probably has a formulation that is probably supposed to be chemically identical, but it is age-wise, it is a different. It's a few more years older than this one I'm using now, and so you could maybe think that possibly there could be a difference in scent strength. Of course, could be a difference, and there may have been a little bit of that reduced with the older one. I think I am enjoying a nicer potency here, so that's good. Splash of water. If you get inflammation, I've said this many times over the years, if you get redness and inflammation at the end of your shave, then if you're using hot water for your lather, you could back it off. Try just using normal room temperature water with your lather and see. That can often, especially cooler water, can be very helpful in soothing and physically reducing inflammation. I used to get redness at the end of a shave after I'd put my alcohol splash on, and I very quickly realized it was the splash itself, the level of alcohol in that particular range of splashes was a little bit more than my skin could handle. I don't think I have sensitive skin, but I think it's more sensitive than your average guy. And so I need to either wait 20 minutes or so after a shave before I put an alcohol splash on, or I can mitigate that with throwing on some witch hazel, and then a few minutes later the alcohol splash. I can take a bottle of Standard Splash and mix that with some witch hazel, make my own kind of aftershave product, and that's ready to go. And that works very well. Then I don't get that redness. Usually it was a sterling would cause that. I think they just use a good bit of alcohol. I think it was happening across any of the alcohol-based splashes that they have. I don't think I'm allergic to a certain ingredient. Some people put a balm on and later follow that up with an alcohol splash. To me, it seems a little wasteful, because that alcohol splash coming on after a balm has got to kind of destroy any goodness and moisturizing that the balm has done, right? And any of the moisturizing ingredients that the balm might leave behind has got to be kind of melted away by the alcohol. Ooh, 30 swirls. Sure didn't look like too much on my brush, but again, tons of lather left over, and I think this is my 5th pass. So maybe 15 swirls next time, or 10 even, probably be fine. A larger brush here can load more soap, and so your load time is going to vary. It's really funny. A lot of different things can change with your load time. Can affect how you should look at your load time. if you're a tub loader like me. Most of the time I do. The age of the soap, the dryness of the soap, as it sat around unused for years. What kind of formulation is the soap? Is it a crope like this soap here? Is it a hard puck like Tobacco or Mitchell's Wool Fat or those fine classic pucks? Wetness of your brush can play havoc as you try to dial in a good load time. I've had Cella specifically. I've had that where I used too much. I had a really soaking wet brush because I was just trying something. And wow, I loaded for a surprisingly long amount of time. And the water, it's almost like it kept the tips from really digging into it and picking up soap. It was very strange. I didn't see that coming. The dryness of your brush, if you really squeeze the water out and come at the soap with a mostly dry brush, then that's obviously gonna change how things pick up. The kind of tips, synthetics have more backbone to their bristles, and even though their tips may feel fairly soft, they have all that backbone behind them, and so that's why they're often regarded as kind of lather monsters, because they just go in there and pick up lots of lather. They're thought of as easy to use because they pick up lather quickly. Whereas if you just spend a little bit more time with a natural hairbrush, it's the same thing. Diameter of the brush. If a brush is smaller or larger, that can affect your load time. So it's really funny how many variables go into thinking about your load time. Which is another reason for Austere August, is take away all those variables, and you can kind of learn. That's another reason for folks who measure. Some guys take a 1/4 teaspoon and will measure out that much soap and press it around. I've done this many, many times. In the bottom of your lather bowl, smear it around in the bottom, and then now you know exactly how much soap you are bringing into the mix, and you can change that. There's some good soaps out there like Sterling where you can go less than a 1/4 teaspoon easily, almost maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon potentially. Let me get a good rinse now. Oh, and then of course one of the biggest things that can affect load time, and we've seen this last year with Austere August, is the residual moisture left over by the previous loading. And so if you come at the tub with a kind of a soaking wet brush, which sometimes is very nice, sometimes that works really well. Usually lightly wet is where I come, where I start with, and that still will impart, it'll leave behind a little bit of moisture. And then it's funny because that'll make it easier to pick up the soap the next time. And so that's another variable. Not only is the wetness in the brush a variable, but then that wetness that's left behind in the soap is another one, and that's impacted by the wetness that's in the brush from the previous day. And so you can adjust for the wetness in your brush the next day, but then the moisture that's in the soap hasn't had a chance to adjust yet because it's going off the previous day's wetness. And so you can have the moisture content of your lather be affected for a couple of days based on a really wet load, So it is there. I really need to do a little extra video on that, on all those factors like I was explaining just now. The list is not a short list of things that can affect your load time, and that, no doubt, that can be a little confusing for some users, because with so many variables, you make one adjustment or two adjustments and you never know quite what did work. Or you may be making an adjustment, but there's something else that's a bigger thing you need to address, a bigger type of adjustment that is more important than the little nuance you might be working on, and so then you're not seeing the change you want. It can be frustrating. And we will move on to the splash stage of the evening. I have enjoyed the lack of an itchy beard. Prior to this month, I was not shaving as often as I used to. I guess maybe I'm getting old and I don't quite have the same energy I used to. It used to be, I'd get to the end of my work day, I'd put the kids to bed and maybe go do a little bit more work, and then it might be midnight and I'd still get up and go shave, you know. But nowadays, if I'm tired in that kind of situation, I'm like, I won't just skip it. But a month like this where I'm enjoying the Midnight Stag challenge of daily use, here's the fragrance, is helping me to remember the joys of daily shaving. There was even one time where I was like, how can I shave more? And so I developed an actual plan to where on one day I could shave in the morning and then at night before bed. And then the next day, I couldn't do the morning because that would be too soon, but I could do maybe like a lunchtime shave. And then the next day morning would be okay. So it was kind of a 2 in one day and then 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So I could get an extra shave in every 2 days if I wanted to do that. But I didn't do that for very long at all. Just a few days to prove the point, and that was enough. That was enough. Life and family and things like that need to come high on your list of priorities than just getting in an extra shave. Put my 58th dot on there. I always like, once you pass 57 or in the 7 in the grouping of 10s that you see here, it's always neat because when you hit the number 58, now you see you've only got 2 more until you hit that 10 grouping, which is, it just seems like it's so close, you know. I like that. 58 was today. Tomorrow's 59, then 560. How about that? How about that? All right, my gear is clean. My razor has been opened up, rinsed thoroughly. It'll sit there and dry. Had a good little chat today on some different topics, even though it was just a normal bowl lather shave. And once, as you saw, it didn't take me too long to whip up that lather. In the past, 40 minutes I might spend on a lather. That's because I was like showing you guys stuff and I was adding water slowly. But once if you do a lightly wet brush, loading on your soap, most of the time I found that about 2 teaspoons of water was good, proper for a lather, a bowl of lather, and have it be wet, lightly creamy, but still very wet and slick. And so then you can start knowing how much that is kind of in your brain. And so when you see that much maybe poured into your bowl, you can just get there quicker, right? Get to the good lather quicker instead of having to do it slowly. Most soaps will allow you to do that. That's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Good night.